Workers were pulled aside at Bradken's Clyde Street workshop and told that the operation would close on the 9th of April. The company told them the strong Australian dollar and competition from Chinese government-owned wagon manufacturers was making it too hard to win work.
China's going to take everything off us, and I think it's bad, really bad, so I don't know what we can do about it.
Considering the mining industry in Australia, it'd be good if all the wagons were built in Australia.
Come as a shock. The workforce is a skilled workforce, and hopefully we can work with the company and have them re-employed or work with some other major rail companies around the area.
Since the global downturn, Bradken has laid off 1,000 workers from its global operations. The AMWU says cheap imports will lead to the loss of more local jobs.
You've only got to look back a year ago with Pacific Brands. They continue to close factories throughout Australia. You've got a number of manufacturing firms that offshore to China. Only recently, with the coal loader being built here in Newcastle, we had a ship loader that was built in Korea. So it's a constant battle for the union and workers in the manufacturing industry.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Wendy Furness and her 11-year-old daughter Penny were among 170 participants who got messy in the kitchen as part of the Cook It, Eat It, Love It project.
Really educational and taught us the difference, like what fruits are better for you, like which are better in sugar, and all about vegetables.
They not only learned how to cook cheap, quick and healthy meals, participants were also educated about the benefits of healthy eating in a fun, hands-on environment.
Families are relying too much on convenience food, and it was getting back to the basics, getting back to enjoying cooking, being in the kitchen, having the children involved.
The program has been hailed a huge success, with a number of participants enrolling in other cooking classes offered by the TAFE.
We didn't have a lot of written material, it was hands-on, and I think it was that hands-on approach that really worked.
The TAFE is now hoping to roll out the program across the country and is in the process of applying for a $1.1 million federal grant. It'll find out next month if it's been successful. Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
The success of any regional show is in the lap of the gods, but this year more than most, with a team of psychics being brought in to entertain showgoers at a psychic and alternative fair.
And we will have live mediums who will be able to speak with people on the other side, which is very interesting for the show.
Yeah. Will it rain or will it be sunny? And will the human cannonball land in the net? These and other cosmic questions will be answered between March 26 and 28 at the Newcastle Showground. And organisers already foresee larger crowds than last year.
Everyone comes in at $10, so it's adults at children's prices.
We don't need a card reading for the winners of this year's National Photographic Exhibition, which attracted almost 1,000 entries. Among the category winners were Alex Hunter from Belmont, Newcastle's Roy Killen and Tanambert's Neville Foster, who snapped this sunset in New Zealand. He says there's an art to taking a winning photo.
Lighting is the most important part of any aspect of photography. That's if you've got that magical lighting, it's so much pleasing to look at.
More of the show photos are on the NBN website.
These students think sliding on a pair of shades at playtime is pretty cool.
It's just like we need to wear hats in the playground to protect our skin from sunburn. We need to wear glasses to protect our eyes from the harmful sun rays.
And seeing their grandparents in a pair proved even cooler, especially when they looked like this.
Yeah, we've seen some funny glasses decorated and some big ones.
Today was all about encouraging students to wear sunglasses as part of their uniform. Grandparents were invited to help spread the sun-safe message and for a bit of a laugh.
I want the children to realise the importance of wearing sunglasses and looking after their eyes.
So we're really hoping that that culture of sun safety develops with our younger children and works the whole way through.
Optometrist Dom Wilson says it's important children wear sunglasses because their eyes are particularly sensitive to UV rays. He's keen to see the policy rolled out at other schools across the country.
Some parents seem to think the kids don't need sunglasses or they need sun exposure, but it's not true. Kids need sun protection just as much as adults do.
Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
"15-year-old Mackenzie Fain has a lot of love in her life, both given and received. She shares a special connection with big sister Zoe, but it's kisses and cuddles all round for her loved ones. Mackenzie's happy and playful nature, one of the characteristics of Angelman syndrome.
Oh yeah, she's very affectionate, isn't she? Very loud, very affectionate.
The third of 4 children in the Fain family, Mackenzie's parents noticed differences in her from birth, but it took until she was 10 for a diagnosis to be reached, a decade of searching for answers.
And then, then you think, oh, well, I should have done this and I should have done that.
There's so many things we could have done had we known earlier.
And so, the big push has got to be for that early diagnosis as much as possible, and funds need to be put into that area.
The condition is characterised by severe intellectual disability and developmental delay, among many other possible features. Mackenzie has a milder version, one of only 5 reported in the world. But she's far from isolated in the realm of rare diseases. 1.2 million Australians have one.
So even though a condition like Angelman syndrome, which is present in 1 in 12,000 children, although that's individually rare, the paradox is that it's not uncommon to actually have or know of an individual with a rare disease.
Mackenzie leads a full life. She loves music, swimming and goes to school, preparing her for life ahead.
We know we have to focus more on living skills with her. There's, not a lot of point expecting her to read and write, and, she won't ever be able to sit and read a book.
Her many achievements are celebrated. Sunday is Rare Diseases Day, highlighting the situation of families like the Fains.
We're just here to be the voice. There are many, many families out there in similar, if not worse, position.
So the aim of Rare Diseases Day is to raise the public awareness, but also the political awareness about the importance of rare diseases as a health priority in Australia.
A lot of good memories up there, so anything's possible. And like I said, I don't know what I'm sort of doing next year or the year after. So just wait and see. And hopefully, my main priority is to go to the World Cup at the moment.
It's trial number 3 for the Knights this weekend in Port Macquarie as the anticipation builds ahead of their NRL season opener against the Bulldogs on March 13. Among those champing at the bit, Ben Cross, who missed most of last season with an injured bicep. After training well this morning, he was cleared to play and can't wait to strap on the boots against Penrith on Saturday.
It's been a long time, and just knowing you've been out for so long and missed the game you love so much for so long, it's just once you get back out there, hopefully it'll all come flooding back.
Jared Mullen will captain the side in place of the injured Kurt Gidley.
I'd like to think Jared is going to evolve into a really good leader, and at this stage we're really happy with his progress.
While veteran centre Adam McDougall will keep Gidley company on the sideline.
Yeah, Adam won't play. He had a little cortisone in his knee on Tuesday and probably needs a week more or less to get over that, so we'll put him in cotton wool and get him ready for the first round there.
Apart from training, both the Knights and the Panthers have toured schools promoting the sport and encouraging locals to attend Saturday's clash. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. After a successful junior carnival last weekend, it was time for the Masters to make their mark. Among the 1,500 competitors, hometown hero Dale Mowbray, who rounded the boys several lengths in front in the 50 to 54 age group.
You had to hit the waves or otherwise you get caught, but I was lucky I got out easy, so it was good.
Perhaps a bit of luck, but also skill. She topped off the ski race by catching a wave into the beach. The 53-year-old has been competing for more than 20 years, and the training is certainly keeping her at her peak.
It keeps you pretty fit, and it's outdoors in the sun and the surf, and you can't get much better than that.
Another standout was 76-year-old Arch Solaris, who's also from the Swansea Belmont Club.
Competed in the ski relay and Chapman relay and single skis.
He proved an inspiration to the rest with a second and third placing, but he says it's not about winning or losing.
The main thing's to be here.
The championships continue this weekend with all the agony and the ecstasy of the Opens. All up, 8,000 competitors will hit the sand and surf at Blacksmiths, generating an estimated $15 million for the local economy. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
This is what $630,000 worth of ceiling insulation looks like. Ron May's been left with the lot after the federal government unexpectedly scrapped its home insulation scheme.
We certainly made the decision to get that stock in based on the fact that back in November they announced that the program was going to remain till 2011.
He even mortgaged his home to make the investment. The government's shock announcement has had an immediate impact on his Beresfield business.
As of last Monday, we've laid off 7 sales staff. We've got 21 installation staff, and at the present moment today, 2 of those are working.
What's more, Mr May says the Commonwealth owes him around $250,000 in unpaid rebates. Patterson MP Bob Baldwin raised the matter in Parliament yesterday and said several other insulation businesses in his electorate are in the same position.
The contractual obligation from the government is that all accounts will be paid in 14 days. I quizzed the Prime Minister yesterday. He said he would act. We will now see whether rhetoric matches the actions.
In a statement today, Labor's Sharon Grierson said regarding Insulmaster, it's just a business set up to take advantage of the scheme. Certainly I will be pursuing his $54,000. The other $180,000 is being processed, but I will make an assurance that it will be paid. Madeline Bond, NBN News. Barry O'Farrell, alongside Maitland MLC Robin Parker, spent the morning at Maitland train station handing out political pamphlets attacking the state's Sydney transport plan.
It's been cancelled and we're going to pay for it in the Hunter with very little to show for it, except $30 extra on our car rego.
The Liberals say the Hunter would be better off under their leadership, although wouldn't divulge how.
We've got comprehensive plans, but this is about the state Labor government cancelling a Sydney plan. It's costing a lot of money.
In fact, voters wanting an indication of what they could expect from the opposition regarding major roads and rail networks just 12 months out from the election would be left wondering.
What Infrastructure New South Wales will do for the New South Wales Liberals is guarantee that those projects will be done in a timely fashion, will be rolled out so that as the area continues to grow, people have the roads and rail services they deserve.
So what are some of those bigger projects?
Well, clearly when it comes to the Hunter, it's about improving rail services, it's improving road links, particularly between the Upper Hunter, Maitland and Newcastle. They're things that Labor has put off for 15 years. All that's resulted in.
When you call 000, you expect the very best care to be on its way. But plans for volunteers to become ambulance drivers and assist officers in small towns could soon change that. Proposed for Bulahdelah, Stroud, Gloucester, Murrurundi and Merriwa, the volunteers would provide relief when only one officer is available to attend emergencies.
Our volunteers will be trained up. They're not untrained volunteers essentially driving ambulances. They're volunteers that will be trained clinically to the appropriate standard that we believe is prepares them for assisting the ambulance officers.
But the standard of education is questioned by the Health Services Union. It believes volunteers will not be equipped to deal with the critical emergencies officers are faced with, and this will threaten lives.
If you have a heart attack sitting in Newcastle today, you'll get 2 ambulance officers. What they want to do, if you have the same sort of condition in Gloucester or Bulahdelah, you'll be delivered half the service, and we think that's totally unnecessary, unprofessional, and it's simply a matter of cost cutting.
A decision on the matter is expected in the coming months. Emma Murphy, NBN News.
And in relation to clinical practice, professional standards, some of the administrative systems that are in place in the clinics, and we want to be able to implement those reviews as quickly as we can. Our melanoma services tend to punch a bit above their weight for a city of this size. So getting the right clinical leadership to take that service forward is very, very important.
This happy and hungry little guy is Theo. You wouldn't know it now, but 6 months ago the juvenile koala was fighting for life after he and his mother were hit by a car.
His mother was killed and he had his front right arm and his back right leg fractured, and he only weighed 425 grams.
Theo ended up in the care of Sue Swain, who worked around the clock to nurse him back to full health. Problem is, Theo thinks he's human, and today he was moved to a rehab yard where he'll adjust to life as a koala.
Here he gets to sit outside, he gets his coat weathered, he's never been in the rain, he's never slept outside in the sun all day, he's been in a cage all the time.
Theo will spend the next 6 to 8 weeks in the rehab yard, and during that time he'll have no contact with his carer to prepare him for release back into the wild.
No one talks to him, no one pats him, no one picks him up, no one acknowledges him, and he is supposed to become feral so that when I release him into the bush, he doesn't approach humans.
And it was even better news for 18-month-old Alice. She was on her way back into the wild today after spending a month with her carer being treated for an eye infection.
Whoopee day it is. She's small but she's very, very wild, and she needs to go back in the bush and do what she's supposed to do.
Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
I think our forward pack really stood up last week. We've had a real good off season, and the boys have built up a bit, so they laid a platform for us halves and outside backs to sort of run right. So the boys are trained real well up front there.
A relaxing warm-up for Karlu Mick at Barooby Beach today, but it'll be anything but relaxing come tomorrow night. The Dubbo horse is set to be a crowd favourite in the second round of Inter-Dominion heats. Trainer Barry Liu is hoping for a top 2 finish after coming in 5th after the first round at Harold Park.
They're all going to take some beating, but if we can get a nice draw come the final, or if we can make the final, we'll hopefully keep them honest.
Newcastle last hosted the Inter-Dominion 8 years ago, and crews spent today making sure the track is in great condition from top to bottom, hoping it's just as successful this time around.
Anyone in any sport wants to see the best in their sport, and this is a chance for people here to see the best in our sport, and as I said, it doesn't happen all that often.
It seems ironic timing then that the club is getting ready to host the sport's biggest event, with the threat of a ban on Saturday night meetings still hanging over its head.
It proves that we can do it. It proves that they want to bring it here. Why they want to threaten with our Saturday nights, it's beyond us.
Gates open at 5 tomorrow afternoon, with the first race at 7. Kate Mitchell, NBN News. The Masters showed they still have it, wrapping up competition today. Queenscliff had an unassailable lead heading into the final day, leaving the other front runners with a last-minute scramble for points. It was then over to the youngsters for day 1 of the state championships. 4,000 competitors will take to the sand and ocean over the next 3 days, representing 100 clubs up and down the coast. And the Blue from Terrigal was out to steal the show, largely thanks to Amy Nervin. Turning 18 yesterday, she already has a few nice birthday presents.
I got a gold in the open board relay. That's the 3rd year in a row, and a gold in the 19 board relay. We got 3rd in the ski relay, so all the girls at Terrigal are all real happy.
Fresh from a 9th place in the Kellogg's Ironwoman Championships, she's out to impress.
The state's always a big one. Like state and Aussies are 2 of the main things everyone looks at in surf.
The competition continues over the weekend with the Blue Ribbon event, the Ironman and Woman finals taking place on Sunday.
It was a less than smooth start for Dolphin Swim Australia's first run, rough swell, and for the first 3.5 hours, no dolphins. But just as the cruise was coming to an end, sets of frolicking fins finally appeared. Swimming right up to Imagine's cruiser and riding its waves. It was all systems go as swimmers got ready. Donning flippers and a mask while sitting inside a swinging net proved a little tricky, but it all paid off with underwater scenes like this, making it the experience of a lifetime. The venture is the only one of its kind in the state and is expected to give Port Stephens tourism a major boost. Getting the venture up and running hasn't been easy.
It's taken about 3 years to get the licence, from start to go, a little bit over 3 years. And yes, we had quite a few hurdles to jump over.
Worth it in the end?
Absolutely.
And today's swimmers agreed.
It was absolutely incredible. It was an awesome experience.
Yeah, definitely do it again tomorrow.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
I mean, I always intended to playing until the grand final, and hopefully we can get to that and obviously win it. So, got the game against Wellington, mate, but my main priority is getting myself right for Wednesday night.
A record lineup, all with their eye on the target, the Newcastle Classic.
They come from as far as Queensland, Victoria. We've got one South Australian here. So it's from far and wide. We also got a lot of locals, which is a great thing to see at a tournament.
And this is the man they all wanted to beat. Eddie Sims was last year's Australian #1.
It's always tough. Once you've been #1 in Australia, everyone loves to beat you. So those things happen and you just got to deal with it and play on and do the best you can.
19-year-old Mitchell Clegg from Mayfield had the honour of partnering Sims in today's doubles. Tomorrow, he'll go it alone in the $6,000 singles.
Played in it since it first started. Go alright, quarterfinals every year, but I'm looking to get better at it this year.
Many weren't feeling the pressure. Simon Whitlock has won the event for the past 3 years, but the former Cessnock Brickie is now on the World Tour and inspiring the likes of 16-year-old Queenslander Rebecca Webster.
I've been to America last year for Youth World Cup, and that's about it for now, but I'm hoping to get overseas once I finish school.
Nat Wallace, NBN News. In sleepy Lochinvar lies Clifton, Claire and John Morrison's 155-year-old heritage-listed home, and just 20 metres away is their neighbour from hell.
It used to be okay, you'd have the occasional train go past and everybody'd laugh about it and the bells and that, but now it's got past that.
Train movements have tripled since the Morrisons moved in 27 years ago, and soon the ARTC will construct a third coal train line. What John tried to tell us today was that will rule out something as simple as a cup of tea.
We've been told to expect a train to go by here every 8 minutes.
Claire and John have made lots of noise about this problem, but their local federal MP has referred it to the Transport Department and they've referred it to ARTC. In 6 years, nothing's changed.
With their construction engineers, I'm sure they can come up with a feasible solution that would please us and solve the problem for them.
Double glazing the windows perhaps, because a new 3-metre metal fence isn't helping. Nat Wallace, NBN News.
Michael Jennings' move to the right paid off for the Panthers, with the centre in outstanding form. Luke Lewis pushed the lead out to 12-0. Then the Knights started to fire up, quick hands steering the ball to Cooper Vuna, who crossed in the corner. Former Port junior Scott Duro put Corey Patterson through the smallest of gaps to equalise, but another Jennings try put the Panthers ahead at the break. The second half was one-way traffic for Penrith, which outscored the Knights 4-1. Jennings got his hat-trick, while Shane Elford fired up down the wing. Kevin Nguama scored the Knights' final try, but a Luke Walsh field goal and second to Luke Lewis sealed the Panthers' 41-16 win. Lynn Laleen, NBN News.
The tsunami warning held up proceedings during the day, but as usual, little could rattle Manly's Naomi Flood. She powered through the board leg to leave younger rivals in her wake. Cooks Hill's Hannah Lemke and Swansea Belmont's Nikki Chapman were left to fight it out for the minor placings. In what is likely to be her last appearance in the Iron Woman at the state titles, Flood won it in a canter.
I'll definitely still be around surf club and lifesaving in general, but I think this will be the end of my Ironwoman career for now.
The locals had more luck in the men's ski final with a gold medal to Redhead's Peter Scott. The Hunter was well represented in the Ironman final thanks to Josh Blair and Kyle Garrett, but a rookie from the South Coast stole the show. Ali Day from Warilla Barrack Point had a slow start but made up plenty of room in the swim before emerging first from the water. The ski proved a mere formality as Day warmed up for the Aussie titles with a confidence-boosting win.
2 years ago I won the under-19s, and then last year I got third in the under-19s, and this is my first year in the Opens, and to win that one, words can't explain it.
Yes, thank you. Well, it's been the cloud of uncertainty hanging over all the Knights players since the arrest of Danny Wicks. Simply, would anyone else be charged? Well, for Chris Houston today, that's come true. He was arrested by officers from the same strike force that arrested Wicks prior to Christmas. A clearly shocked Knights club offered a blunt reaction late today via a two-line statement that simply read, Newcastle Knights player Chris Houston has been stood down immediately and indefinitely following reports he was charged this afternoon on drug-related allegations. Wicks suffered a similar fate following his arrest and later terminated his own contract. What fate now awaits Houston is unclear. But it's the fallout this latest drama will have on the club that's also hard to measure. It's understood Knights players gathered late today for a crisis meeting. Club administrators are sure to be having plenty of those over ensuing nights and days, particularly with their major sponsors, while fans could yet vote with their feet. This is a club now in damage control once again, only 3 days away from their season launch and less than 2 weeks away from season kickoff. Back to you.
All day yesterday, the SES was receiving faxes from the Bureau of Meteorology, warning of a possible tsunami bringing dangerous surf and strong ocean currents. But while it was spreading the word, it says the surf life-saving movement sent the wrong message to the public by pushing on with its state championships.
In other areas of the Hunter region, they're out closing beaches and keeping people off the beaches. But they still decided after their own risk assessment that they would continue with their carnival.
Ken Spear says while he wasn't surprised some people ignored the alerts, he didn't expect lifesavers to respond the way they did at Blacksmiths.
The best thing they should have done was to clear the beaches as they were doing in other locations.
SES crews headed to all Hunter beaches, which faced a tsunami threat following the 8.8 magnitude earthquake that struck off the coast of Chile.
They went around, they spoke to people, they advised them about the tsunami warning and that it would be safe for them to leave the water or leave the beaches.
The SES also advises people to return all boats to harbours and estuaries, to avoid going to headlands or coastlines to watch the surf conditions and to pay attention to media reports.
But there was a minority who decided they would make up their own mind and not pay attention to those warnings.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
It hasn't been all fun and games, but today Kevin Rudd's big spend was more than welcome. The $390,000 Dixon Park Playground was the last piece of the Community Infrastructure Program. In total, $1.9 million worth of council-requested projects for Newcastle.
It would have taken council some years to do them one by one through successive budgets. So that's a really tangible result, which is very, very important.
More than $600,000 went into car parks. There were also 34 bus stop upgrades, tree planting around Honeysuckle and some much needed footpaths at Beresfield. All of the work done in 6 months.
We have looked very fondly at the council's way of rolling this out quickly, meeting the economic stimulus demand to make sure jobs were maintained.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
University life can be daunting for first-year students, particularly at Callaghan. With newfound independence, they need to navigate the enormous campus, organise timetables and find textbooks, all among a sea of strangers.
There are so many people here, it's almost overwhelming.
A little bit confusing about where everything is.
30,000 students are enrolled this year at the university's 4 campuses. That's up 2,000 on last year. Lines stretched out of bookshops while the administration buildings were swarming with students. But first impressions were mostly positive.
Enjoying the freedom compared to school, so it's good.
Apart from the university's infamous bloodsuckers.
We have a mosquito problem.
Terrible, really bad.
It just seemed to attract them, so I've been attacked.
There were also the usual complaints about the lack of parking.
I'd end up parking, I don't know, really far away and walked about 20 minutes just to get back to the uni.
To get a park, you have to come in at like 7:30.
The university is recommending staff and students use trains, buses and cycle paths. The website now includes timetables for public transport.
I'm catching buses, it's more like convenient.
Caught the train. It was. I know parking's pretty tough here.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
A smile for the cameras, but make no mistake, Job Wheelhouse is hurting. As his teammates went back to work, he needs to be running by Wednesday and prove his groin can handle finals football.
The plan was always to leave it as long as we possibly can, but you can't leave it too long, otherwise if he's not right, we've got to look at other options.
With Tarek Elrich also on light duties today, there was a stack lining up to state their case for selection in the do-or-die game, as the club waits to see what shape their 2 Socceroos are in after Wednesday's game in Brisbane, particularly captain Matt Thompson.
Matty didn't do too much from all reports in the first couple of days, but obviously there's a good chance he'll start in the game, so it's a matter of how he comes through that.
It was that win against Gold Coast which gives the coach heart.
No one really gave us a chance. Maybe the same thing applies now, but I really do believe that game against Gold Coast has given us a tremendous boost.
And that's why he plans on taking the game to the home side this weekend, given they face a few dramas of their own with players on representative duty.
We can approach the game in a different way, and that means being in their faces rather than allow them to dominate.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. In its 25-year history, Surfest has attracted the best riders from across the planet. But this year, with the likes of Kelly Slater and Mick Fanning competing at Bondi on the same weekend, the Newcastle contest has been left high and dry. 4-time world champion Mark Richards says it's time Surfest received the recognition and funding it deserves.
I think the only way to guarantee that those guys are here is for the event to be a WCT event, which means a huge injection of money to actually take it to that level, and that's about the only way to really get them here.
With the event now rated as a 4-star WQS event, organisers remain confident the surfing will be world class. Richards says missing out on the Surfest crown was one of the great disappointments of his career. He's hoping this will be the year a local finally wins the title.
It's really hard to win an event at home because I think that you're trying harder because you're on your home beach and all your friends and family and everything are watching, so I think it adds pressure.
More than 600 surfers from 13 countries will compete across a range of events over 2 weeks, including legends Mark Occhilupo and Sonny Garcia. This afternoon, organisers confirmed American Tom Curran, the winner of the first Surfest back in 1985, is also set to return. After watching his daughter compete last year, Curran will be back with older son Pat, who'll compete in a Pro Junior.
It's just a fantastic experience to have him come back, and he's going to be commentating, doing an exhibition and really putting a show on for the crowd again.
Surfest begins tomorrow with the Indigenous Classic. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
It's a club under scrutiny once again, and the strain is clear. Neither coach Rick Stone nor his players today wanted to buy into the latest drama that's placed the Knights back in the spotlight, and considering the club's recent history, you can understand why.
It's disappointing that the furor that surrounds these charges, they chip away at the fabric of the club. There's no question about that.
Club chairman Rob Chew has spent much of the last 24 hours dealing with the fallout from the drug charges levelled at Chris Houston and defending the club from claims it has a drug culture, given the arrest of Danny Wicks before Christmas.
Well, I can tell you categorically our testing regime over the last 2 years, which is towards the upper echelons of the NRL, is quite clear in its indication that that is not the case. So we do not have a drug culture in our club.
The club's independent drug tester was at training this morning, but only police know whether Houston's arrest will be where the saga stops.
Well, we're hopeful, but as we were from Dan's arrest, we're open-minded about where it may run to. We're not frightened about where it may run to, and we'll take appropriate action wherever the information and evidence may lead us.
What he is sure of, the Knights will survive.
Our club's bigger than this. Our club's bigger than individuals within it, and we'll go on and we'll have a successful season and we'll compete on behalf of our community.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
For a club already in debt and engaged in a legal stoush with the Jets, the possible loss of sponsors is the last thing the Knights need.
Our sponsors are monitoring how we deal with this. They're monitoring, where it may lead to, but they are supportive of our actions on these two matters.
CEO Steve Burriston has sent out a letter to members and sponsors saying this is without doubt one of the most difficult episodes the Knights have ever faced, and there has never been a time when we have needed our sponsors, members and supporters more than we do now. We truly understand your anger and frustration, and I apologise personally and on behalf of the club. Coal and Allied today confirmed it remains the Knights' naming rights sponsor at this stage. Of the other backers, Blue Tongue is extremely disappointed by recent developments and is currently reviewing its sponsorship with the club. NIB is concerned for the long-term integrity of the club and the potential by association for reputation damage to the NIB brand. Energy Australia says it's disappointing, a genuine concern, and the Newcastle Permanent believes it's unfortunate that the alleged actions of these two players have threatened the reputation of this proud football club. As for the word on the street...
Well, if I were their sponsors, I probably wouldn't want my name associated with them.
It'll definitely impact on probably their game this year. Well, it's not a real good image, is it, for a sporting team?
It's bad for the reputation, it's bad for the young people.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. It was supposed to be a road to business growth, but right now it's anything but. 10 years on, and the Hunter Economic Zone, which was intended to create thousands of jobs, is largely empty, and much of the blame is being placed squarely on Cessnock Council.
I think the council's not doing enough positive work to help industries establish here. They seem to be acting in the opposite direction.
I'm not asking the council to do anything out of the norm other than to operate the same and treat DAs the same. That would give us an opportunity in this area to have business here and allow jobs for our kids.
Allegations rejected by Cessnock Greens councillor James Ryan, who says the zone was never going to work and should now be turned into a national park.
It's pretty clear that the lack of success of the HEZ is due entirely to a poor decision from the state government.
In 8 years, only 2 businesses are operating here. NBN News has been told several other businesses have walked away because of the lengthy application process. The major sticking point being the land is currently zoned heavy industrial.
The state government is now considering altering the zoning to allow smaller operators to enter the area, while the receivers say they'll keep the company running as normal for the time being. Kate Mitchell, NBN News.
Drivers say the Catapult booking system has been riddled with flaws and system failures since it was first installed in Newcastle taxis back in 2008. Now the cabbies have had enough and have voted to create their own system.
I can't find any other alternative. We've spoken to cab charge for 2 years and we're not getting a result. Patch-ups, band-aids is not good enough.
Drivers argue not only do customers have trouble booking cabs, but the system regularly freezes and that puts their safety at risk. That's because when the system goes down, so too does their in-car security cameras and alarms. Numerous letters have been sent to CabCharge and Newcastle taxis demanding a better program, and in September 2008, half the fleet went off the road in protest, parking at Energy Australia Stadium. But drivers say the problems have continued.
There's been numerous upgrades over the period of time, but we've found with each upgrade we go back to the same problems.
Some drivers are so frustrated they're leaving the industry.
The Catapult system we would like taken out of the cars. It just does not work. Everybody's suffering, especially our public.
WorkCover and the Transport Department are investigating drivers' concerns. Newcastle taxis didn't return NBN's calls today. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Dropped from the Premier Division in 2008, Easts have always maintained they were unfairly removed from the region's top grade and have sat out all forms of rugby since. The NHRU offered the chance to mediate the dispute, and the governing body says
there was a meeting and a course of action was agreed to by all parties. We're waiting for Eastern Districts to come back to the Rugby Union and agree to that course of action.
The NHRU has also been taking action in another area with its own purpose-built ground a step closer to reality. A recent public meeting to discuss the development has been hailed as a success, despite objections to the retail component which was planned for the western side of the ground.
The conceptual plans received a great deal of support from the local community, and there will be a formal DA application going to Council in the next few weeks.
Speaking of construction, the NHRU today announced its second major sponsor for the coming season. Represented by former Wallaby and coach Ross Reynolds, Broad Construction Services is also in the running to develop the ground.
If Broad gets a chance to build it, great, but we're obviously here for the long term, so we plan to stay with Newcastle and Hunter for a long time.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
"10 years ago, these grounds looked a whole lot different.
When it first started, there was nothing here at all. It was just a whole lot of grass and rubbish.
But what you see now is the result of hours of hard work by a dedicated group of tenants from this housing department complex at Hamilton.
Everything that we've put in here has come from the tenants, and we've focused mainly on drought-tolerant plants and Australian natives, of course.
But a walk through the grounds reveals so much more. There's a rose avenue, a cactus garden, even a veggie patch. Every weekend for the past decade, the Green Thumbs have planted, pruned and mulched around the site to create the themed gardens.
It's a real camaraderie thing that everybody donates things, and we have morning teas and afternoon teas, parties.
And with the group's 10-year anniversary approaching on Saturday, it's finally taking time to reflect on its achievements.
And I've heard people say when they've been a bit down, and they'll say, I've come out on the balcony in the mornings, looked out at the gardens, and it's made me feel so much better.
Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
I'll keep going, mate, forever. As many as I can get.
Police allege the brothers broke into this home at Katara at 6 this morning, assaulting one man and threatening his wife before fleeing in a ute that was stolen last night. The pair then headed to a Valentine housing estate where the 21-year-old allegedly broke into this home while his 16-year-old brother waited in the vehicle, and that's where police say they found them.
Police have then challenged the driver of the vehicle, and an incident has occurred in which a firearm was discharged by one of the police officers. A single shot was fired.
The shot hit the teenager in the hip and thigh. Police can't say whether he was still in the car when he was fired on or if the officers were threatened.
I think all of the exact details are obviously subject to a lot of investigation that will be required to take place.
The teen's brother then fled into the estate, sparking a police search and panicking some neighbours.
Told the kids to come inside and locked all the doors because you didn't know exactly where they were.
Well, there was a very big commotion out the front with helicopters and police sirens and cars everywhere. We didn't know what had happened.
The 21-year-old man allegedly tried to hide here in these bushes but was seen by the property's owner, who quickly alerted police. Police have set up a critical incident team.
We've got a number of crime scenes. It's quite a large and complex inquiry.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
We understand that, he's got a huge battle to fight now, and his mind just couldn't be around football at that period of time.
"10 deaths in 12 years. No wonder they call this place Heartbreak Hill."
And it's not only the deaths, which unfortunately are the only ones that are reported. There's been many, many accidents here where people have suffered serious injury.
Today, there were signs of hope for the residents. The RTA has begun work on a $1 million solution.
They're putting a barrier up the middle of the road for about 1 kilometre.
And there'll be turning lanes at some of the worst points. The changes are out the front of the Miller's home, and they can't come soon enough.
We actually went out when the first accident was, and
back in October.
Yeah.
The 26th of October.
Which were
2005. A lot of sleepless nights, nightmares, just the visions that you see after the accidents.
Work will be finished in 3 months, and what difference it makes, only time will tell.
Oh, it's much better than nothing. It's much, much better than nothing.
We're thrilled that a kilometre's being repaired and made safer, but there's 3 kilometres of very, very dangerous road here.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
It's fair to say Merewether Surf House has been the talk of the town, or the beachside suburb at least, for several years. But now Newcastle Council has turned its attention to improving the stretch from the Baths right through to John Parade, and the Merewether Beach Public Domain Plan outlines several ways to do just that.
The opportunity to provide better amenity in terms of seating, beautification and all that are parts of the plan. But the big ticket items, which perhaps is a new surf club for Merewether.
But Lord Mayor John Tate says financial assistance is needed in order for those larger projects to go ahead.
The roadworks and the traffic calming and things like that can be funded out of council budgets on an annual basis. But a new building, of course, we'd need state and federal help to do that. And with a plan in place, well, then you're in a position to be able to try and get that help.
Despite the fact the changes to Surf House are still yet to be realised, Mr Tate says the grand plan can go ahead.
The footprint of Surf House is not enlarged, it's a newer building, so the domain plan has been worked around that.
And the old Lynch's Prawns and Bait Shop on Newcastle's foreshore is set for a makeover after lying vacant for several years. Council has given the go-ahead for a cafe on the site. Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.